we're here to tell you the story about the time we got chased out of our backyard by a man with a machete. So it was about 9 years ago. We were living in our old house. It was about like 4 o'clock in the morning, I think. We had our 1-year-old golden doodle, Ellie. She's sleeping right over there right now. And our house our bedroom faced our backyard. It was really windy. And we were sleeping, and heard the gate slam, but it was really windy, so I thought the gate had blown open and slammed. Brian was sound asleep, but I mentioned our golden doodle because she was 1 at the time and like jumped up into the window and then kept pacing back and forth and back and forth and then kept trying to get my attention. And then she'd jump up in the window and pace back and forth, and that continued for like probably an hour and a half. And at that time, we would walk our dogs early in the morning at 6 a.m. So fast forward to 6 a.m. that morning, and I woke Brian up, or he got up, and I said, there might have been somebody in the backyard that night. Now, given all of that back and forth with the golden doodle, I did not think to look out the back window. But I told Brian at 6 a.m. that morning, that I thought somebody was in the backyard, and he said, oh, well, okay, I'll go check.
So
lesson 1, don't go check the backyard if you think someone's been back there.
So I go in the backyard and I see that the gate is open. And
the way our house was set up, you had to exit a side door, go through our driveway to a gate to get to the backyard. And like I said, our bedroom faced the back door, but you can just walk out the back of the house to the backyard.
Yeah, so walked out the side, walked around to the gate. The gate was open, and I sort of looked back there and I saw that our shed, where I kept all our tools and that kind of stuff, the door to that shed was open. And there were just piles and piles of stuff, of all of our tools, of bins, sitting outside the door to the shed, like in stacks. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, somebody was trying to rob us right now, but I scared them or something and they stopped. But I wasn't quite sure yet, and so I came back in the house and I said, I think we're being robbed.
No, you were like, I think somebody's been here. Why don't you come look with me?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So
we go.
I went with him.
So we go back into the backyard.
Terrible idea.
Mistake number 2.
And meanwhile, Ellie, the golden doodle, has her face perched in our back window watching us.
Watching very observantly.
The whole time.
So we don't have, any means of self-defense or anything like that, but we go back there. I go in the shed to see, what's going on. I think I might have stopped at we had a secondary little garden shed thing. And I think I grabbed a shovel.
He was like,
as a weapon.
No.
Or a broom. I grabbed something.
He didn't do that. He had his iPhone flashlight.
That's my flashlight.
It was dark at this point in time because it was,
it's October.
It was October, days before Halloween. And we were we'll get to that later. But he had his flashlight, and then we had a secondary shed that was actually off the garage. Multiple sheds in this backyard. And the first shed he checked was not the one that had everything, the garden shed. He braced against it and made me stand guard while he opened the shed in case someone came lunging out of it. Nobody came lunging out of that shed. There was nothing out of it either. He was so no one attacked us from the garden shed. Then Brian, and the backyard was kind of a U shape. It's kind of it was a U, and the garage was here, the shed was here, and then the back part, it was a garden bed, flower bed that we just redone with new plants and everything, and then the grass was in the middle. So he went to check the shed. Meanwhile, stuff is strewn all throughout the grass.
Well, it wasn't really strewn throughout the grass. It was in nice little piles, like someone was going to come back and get it and take it.
Didn't look nice.
But they got interrupted. Anyway, Jason thinks the whole yard was just filled with things, but it's not what I remember. Anyway, so there's stacks of things outside the second shed. So we go to that second shed, and I'm just like shining the lights to see what is missing, kind of looking in there. There's no, because the door to that shed was open. There's nobody in it. So as I see the piles of stuff, I start to try and look around.
He started looking in the flower bed portion of the yard, which isn't, there weren't like huge bushes or anything, because like I said, we just redone it probably like 2.5 months before. Like looking to see if there was stuff in the flower bed. So it was like a slow-mo, not really slow-mo, but at the time, or now, slow-mo pan of his iPhone flashlight against the garden bed against the fence line.
Yeah. And so
counterclockwise.
Yes. No, clockwise. This way.
Yeah.
Anyway, direction doesn't matter. I go from the shed kind of clockwise around the whole yard until I get to the kind of the opposite corner from the shed.
To the garage.
To the garage. And it's sort of like in the corner behind the garage and that garden shed that we talked about before. There's sort of a darker corner over there, but next to the fence.
Well, basically pitch black at 6 in the morning.
As I get my flashlight there, I see what I think is like a big duffel bag. And I'm like, oh, they had filled this duffel bag full of all the stuff from the shed. And then I spooked them, and so they like stashed it in this corner, and they were going to come back for it or whatever. But as my flashlight gets on this, what I think is like a duffel bag or a backpack, and that it is not a duffel bag or a backpack, it is the person.
It is a person, and
they're slowly standing up.
Well, no, they didn't stand up. It was crouched, and then Brian realized it has hands, and Brian starts to yell at the human that's in the backyard. He's like, I don't remember what he said, but he said... I think I said, like, don't move. I'm going to call 911. Just stay where you are.
I'm calling the police.
Yes, that's what he said. And then
they stood up.
But it was like slow. It was like a zombie rising from a grave. It was slow. And he stood up.
And then realized that it wasn't just hands, but
with a machete.
In the hand had a machete.
And then Brian yelled.
Jason was sort of standing behind me.
I was behind. And then Brian yelled, Jason, run. And the guy goes, in the creepiest voice you've ever heard, you better run. And this is like 4 days before Halloween. We're supposed to go to like a haunted theme park thing later that night, literally. And I have never run faster in my life. Brian ran behind me. And like I mentioned, the driveway ran past the entrance to our house. We both ran past our house, which was unlocked because we just left our dogs in there. But we booked it past. Luckily, the man did not run into our home. Well, we went one way, he went the other.
And when you're running like that, and it's all kind of slow motion in your brain, and you're thinking, like, at least I thought, like, okay, do I try and run in the house and close and lock the door? Or is he too close behind and then he's going to be, like, closer to me, and then I'm going to be in a situation where he's in my house, in our house, with us. Didn't want that, so I thought that the best thing to do would be to just run to the as open of an area as we could get and not inside our house. So we ran as fast as we could to the front of the house, and on the driveway, and he was chasing us with the machete. And then when we got to sort of where the driveway meets the sidewalk, we went one way, and he thankfully ran the other way, the opposite direction.
Never to be heard from again.
If your dog is alerting you that maybe somebody is in your backyard, call the police then.
Yes.
Don't investigate by yourself. And then when you're like, oh, I think we're being robbed right now. Hey, come outside with me. Let's go look some more.
Maybe we both can die together. At least we would have been together. But yeah, that's the moral of the story. But we don't live in that house anymore. And that's the reason.
We immediately put that house on the market.
But then the night we were moving, the SWAT team also showed up. So another story for another day.